Good morning, everybody. Episode 26, Coast to Coast College Football pregame show. This is the post-championship recap edition. And as you can clearly see, one of our co-hosts is extremely happy with the way that game went. The other one is wearing extremely obnoxious sunglasses to try to block out all the sadness of the season. I'm your host, Uncle Shally, Bill Shawcross. To my top left, we're going to call him Champ tonight. Mr.
I will
Charles
not do that.
Buckeye brother from another mother. Another co-host with a championship trophy. Mr. Simpson, how are you doing, sir?
I'm feeling absolutely fantastic, this morning. I've gotten to bask in the glory of being a champion yet again. This is the first time that I've gotten to the top of the mountain here, got to experience this feeling here. I know it's something that's not common for a lot of people, and Alex is even to the point where he's got the SMU background today. So you know how much that national championship hurt him, but it feels good, man. It feels good. And I'm drawing out my introduction here because I'm basking in the glory of a championship, and what makes it even sweeter, tomorrow is the championship parade. And I'm going to go down to the Horseshoe, to Ohio Stadium. I'm going to see the guys with the trophy, and we're going to have a ball in the cold. We're going to have a great time. So it's been a wonderful week, and it's been a wonderful feeling.
I wish they could, they would found a more, respectable place to host it other than that Horseshoe. But I understand. It's a place where you fit a lot of people. It's a toilet bowl, but it's all right.
It is.
But last and certainly not least, as always, Mr. West Coast, representing the very frosty South right now. SMU, that's just a weird flex. But Mr. Oregon, Mr. West Coast himself, Mr. I Black, Alex Elmore, how are you, sir? How has your week been since you watched a fellow Big Ten school win another championship that's not named Oregon?
I mean, you got to remember, we're part of the Big Ten now. So when one of our schools win, we all win, okay? And that's how I firmly believe. So as Big Tens, we're all champ. Bill, you're a champ. I'm a champ. Cottrell, you're a champ. We're all champs. Go Big Ten.
Not the way I thought he was going to handle this, Cottrell.
Thank you. I like to keep you on your toes. But no, I am flexing the SMU because I feel like that was my best prediction of the season. Was SMU going to making it to the ACC championship game in their first season. So I am flexing the SMU because that's my flex for the year, and I'm going to celebrate them and celebrate me because I don't want Cottrell to be the only person celebrating, so I'm celebrating too. We're embracing it. All wins today. All wins today, Bill.
Bill, well, he just can't figure it out over there. He goes from one team that can't win the playoffs to another team that can't win the playoffs. It's just
right.
He just doesn't know.
Can't win them all. We can't win
he
them all.
He just doesn't know which level of mediocrity he wants to stand on.
Well, Alex, I hate to one up you, but speaking of predictions, the other two co-hosts on the show predicted who was going to win the national championship correctly this year.
Cheers, Bill.
Vegas. Whoop-de-doo.
Cheers, sir. Cheers. Ohio State Buckeyes, Monday night, took care of business, won the inaugural 12-team college football playoff. We are going to recap that, obviously. I actually have a lot to say. I know Cottrell does as well. He will get his roses and lead that segment off. And I'm actually curious to hear what Alex's thoughts on the game were.
Bill, don't worry. Oregon already gave us our roses when we won the Rose Bowl. We have plenty of roses from that one.
That was pretty smooth, Alex. I didn't even set him up on purpose on that one. So we're going to recap the national championship game. Obviously, we will have the crowning achievement of the season, and we will see Ohio State.
Make my eye twitch.
We'll see Ohio State at the top of Eliminator Mountain by themselves. No green boots. They got by everything. They made the final last steps and made it to the top. Then we're going to go to the portal stuff. We talked about this last week. We're going to get into it this week. The guys that we think made the biggest impact in the portal this year and who we're looking forward to next year. And then we're going to end the show on a really fun topic. And I will tell you this. We talked about it, and I was excited to do it. And then when I started Googling, there was actually websites. I don't know if you guys found these, but I did. There was actually websites dedicated to this topic of all the great college players that we missed in the break between EA NCAA football games. So I had a blast with that. It was really hard to come up with 5 names. I could have came up with 20 easily. But I had a lot of fun with that topic. So that's how we're going to end the show. And then next week will be our last show before we take a little bit of a break. We will come back in and we will give our way too early predictions for the college football playoff next week. We'll probably have a couple other fun things lined up. So
award show.
Now that everything is said and done. So we will next week will be a little bit more lighthearted, probably start to finish. But that being said, as always, Alex is going to start the show. It is your time, sir, with headlines. Let's get going.
Shotgun, DC right, flip 90, dig, on the center, ready?
Man, Keanu just gets me pumped for the morning, man. Every Saturday morning, I wake up to a little bit of Keanu, and I'm just ready to go, all right? But hey, today we're breaking the huddle.
Ducks before a game.
Whew, right? Hey, let me have my people reach out to his people. I heard he's very easygoing, so I'll get him on the show. People. We can all talk to him. Exactly.
You come in as the West Coast. You can come in as the Point Break character, Johnny Utah.
There we go. Like, give us this college football perspective.
Yeah.
Anyway, but today we're going to start the headlines with the final top 25 poll from the AP. Cottrell, pull that up for me if you can, please, sir.
Give me 1 second here, sir. Give me 1 second.
Man, see, look at the Ohio State Buckeye win a championship and thinks he can slack on the job.
Hey, all right, we're on my time now. For the next 365, we're on my time here.
Thank goodness it's not a leap year.
Well, I mean, we can start it. We know who finished number one, so let's start there.
Obviously, we got Ohio State finishing in the AP poll, number one spot. Notre Dame coming in the rounding up the top two with the Notre Dame. We got Oregon Ducks at number 3. I think that is deserving. Number 3, undefeated regular season, only one loss. Do you think that Oregon deserves to be in front of Texas and Penn State?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Tell me why.
Because they lost before they both did. They both
but Texas had 2 losses. Yeah, but Texas played Arizona State, who people argued didn't even deserve to be in the college football playoff.
And they proved that wrong.
Or was Texas that bad that, of course, Arizona State could compete because Texas didn't play well?
I'd argue that Texas played Ohio State better than Oregon did the second time around.
Ooh.
Because they won, because they lost by 6 less points.
The game was they were quite literally 1 yard away from tying the game in the fourth quarter.
Pull it up. We're not just talking about the top 5. Hey, this is my segment. This is my time. Remember, you said it. This is my time, man. All right, this is my time. I didn't have it this year. This is my time.
Oregon should be 5.
Okay, that is absolute horse manure. Since Oregon and Penn State played heads up, they beat them for the Big Ten championship. Oregon should not be behind Penn State. No way. I could hear Oregon being 4. I will not hear Oregon being 5. That is absolutely not happening.
Oregon should be 5.
What is in that coffee cup? Castro, back me up on this. As much of an Oregon hater as you are, Oregon and Penn State had the luxury of
what's in here?
Head.
It's called champion juice.
Must be stale. It's over a year old.
Never goes bad. That's one thing you'll learn if you ever get some.
This is just everybody against Alex show today.
You're gonna get from both sides here. But Alex, as much as I am the Oregon hater, I have to say Oregon 100% should be 5 here. I mean, you play these games. You play them for a reason. I get it. Oregon beat Penn State, but at the end of the day, Penn State, Texas, they made it to the semis, and they were, arguably 1-2 bad plays away from being in the national championship. With Texas, bad play away from tying the game to have the potential. Penn State, if you're out of another interception, we might be talking about Ohio State playing Penn State in the national championship game. So for me, I look at it as like, why even have these rankings when they don't really matter outside of the top 2? Like, I don't think Notre Dame is a better football team than Oregon, but you put them at 2 because they made the Natty. So why does that differ for the teams that made the semifinals?
They also played Ohio State the best in the playoff.
To your point though, before Notre Dame was getting their asses handed to them for a large majority of that game.
until you started texting, talking crap about how Ohio State was national champion, and then Notre Dame said, "Oh, okay, watch this," and then made it a little bit better of a game.
I mean, they just had more heart when they were down than other teams that Ohio State played previously. Tennessee kind of rolled over. Oregon, they didn't roll over, but I mean, they didn't fight back as much as Notre Dame did. But again, I think if you want to go by like the team, what team you think are the best, I'm cool with that. Put Oregon at 2 then, if that's the case.
The regular season has to play a part in this poll. I mean, it has to, or else there's no point in playing the regular season. An undefeated regular season, you have to be the next best team. If you win the regular season like that, undefeated, you have to be the next best team after the 2 finalists. You have to be.
Penn State
yes.
won.
Yes, Bill. Yes.
No one cares if you're in the regular season. After the regular season's over and they reseed and they seed for the college football playoff, everybody's starting 0-0, bro. Matters what you do in that bracket. You guys went 0-1. You got
but this is not the final 12 poll. This is the top 25 poll.
You got all the people. There's no consistency here either.
There's not, because how's Clemson behind Ole Miss and BYU?
Correct.
Arizona State, they didn't win a playoff game, and they would have been outside of the top 12 based on rankings, and now you have them at number 7 because they had a close loss to Texas. Like, I don't know how that factors in.
They should be ahead of Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going off of just close losses, then why not put them ahead of Georgia? SMU made the playoff again. How are they behind Ole Miss, who was on the outside looking in? They didn't. I mean, I know they had a bad showing, but they made the playoff. So did Clemson.
They didn't have a worse showing than Tennessee. How's Tennessee ahead of them? Tennessee shouldn't be on this damn grid.
Do you guys see that people arguing that Indiana should be number 3 because their only 2 losses this season were to Ohio State and Notre Dame?
I'm not kidding.
I had to say it out loud so Bill could get Bill's reaction to that.
I'm not doing it. I told you so. I told you so, and I told you so, and I'll leave it at that.
Alabama at 17. They lost to Michigan last game of the year. That rubs me the wrong way. I mean, Miami was like the first team or second team left out, and they dropped 4 spots, and they didn't do anything wrong. I know they lost their game, but shit, Cam Morton didn't play. How much can you penalize them for that?
And how does Iowa State play at 15 when they got their doors blown off in the Big 12 championship game? Like, come on.
Because they played well in their bowl game against Miami. I mean, they beat Miami, but I mean that's probably the only real argument for them.
Yeah.
I'm actually still surprised that Colorado finished ranked. They only dropped 5 spots after getting their doors blown off by BYU.
I'll tell you this: Colorado's better than Missouri, and Missouri's sitting there pretty at 22. So,
yeah, they get their SEC bias on that one, but I do like that Memphis is in there. I do like the UNLV and Army finish in that top 25. It's nice to see them get a little bit of recognition for the great seasons that they've had.
No business being top 25 either.
No, not after losing to Navy the way that they did. Absolutely not. But no, I have really no huge gripes with this. I mean, obviously there's some inconsistencies, but what do these final rankings really do besides, it's just another graphic for us to talk about. I mean, like these rankings don't mean anything for next year. They don't mean anything for the past season. Nothing. It's just kind of like, hey, Oregon, congratulations. We think you had the 3rd overall best team. Your seeding kind of sucked, but there you go. That's like a pat on the shoulder type thing. So, but I think it is nice to see how the season ends up, especially comparing it to where it started. Colorado finishing ranked, I think was, that was a huge debate at the beginning of the season is what kind of team was Colorado going to be in year 2? I think they showed a lot of growth. I think they showed a lot of, Shador showed out. Obviously, Travis winning the Heisman. They had a great season, just a couple of close losses, and that kept them out of the college football playoff or at least the Big 12 championship game. It'll be interesting to see what they do going into next year, but it'll be interesting to see what new teams are on this list next year.
I'll say this: Colorado better be happy that they didn't make it to the college football playoff because they would have got boat raced by any of the top 8 seeds.
If that's how they prepare for BYU, then yeah.
Not even just that. Looking at how BYU got handled and how Iowa State got handled by Arizona State was a top 4 team. And, even if, presumably it's like a tight game against Arizona State in the first time around, the way Arizona State was playing, they would have put a shellacking on Colorado. So, I just think that they need to bask in the fact that they got the 9 wins, and obviously didn't end how they wanted to. They lost to a good BYU team, but yeah, the playoff would have did them no favors.
But overall, the final count, SEC ended with 7 ranked teams. The Big Ten ending with 4 teams in the top 10, 5 total ranked teams. Obviously, the SEC, owning the college football landscape is a thing of the past. I think the last couple seasons have shown that. Do you expect the SEC bias to continue, or do you think that as NIL kind of rolls out, everyone gets more familiar with it, these other conferences will kind of overtake the SEC as an overall conference?
There's only one conference that can overtake them, and it's the conference that's won the back-to-back championships.
No, Bill, you could say it. It's the conference that has overtaken them.
Yeah. You know what? Cochel's right. I'm puffing my chest. It is.
Yeah, guys, we're the Big Ten. Woo!
Listen, it's you look at what's going to happen, and we talked about this on the previous episode. They do not have the money to compete. They don't. They got away with doing this for so long because they were the only ones doing it. Ohio State has a very big endowment. Michigan is tied for first with Notre Dame with the biggest endowments in the country, almost $20 billion. Oregon has Nike money. These schools are not going anywhere. USC has a ton of money from alumni like Ohio State does. They're both in the top 10. Alabama's like 18th. I think Georgia's right behind them at like 19th or 20th at like 2.6. Like they're not in the same neighborhood. Like you've already seen some of the stuff that came out. Like Michigan is dedicating between $40 and $50 million towards NIL athletics. That's not just a football team, but across the board for all their programs starting next year. Ohio State is around 25. Like it's like they're going to outspend them. And again, it's like I think we talked about last week. All of a sudden, it's I can get more money to go there. I'm going to get a great education, and playing in the cold all of a sudden isn't a disadvantage anymore because these teams are eligible to host home playoff games in the playoff. So the days of everybody just staying in the South and all this good stuff and, Notre Dame and Michigan and Penn State having to fight over all the kids that have, 4.0 GPAs and everything. It's all part of the past, man. It's changed dramatically the last 2 years. Michigan, Ohio State, and Oregon, and Penn State, I believe, are all in the top 10 for recruiting classes coming in this year. It's the tides are turning, man. I don't mean that to take a shot at Alabama or anything, but Nick Saban's not down there anymore. I would tell you there's a lot of rumblings, that Kirby was a little distracted, and he's been talking to NFL teams. I don't know how much longer he stays there. And the rest of them, quite frankly, I'm not worried about. So you look at next year's, and again, we'll get into that next week with next week's episode, but there's, in the top 15, there's going to be 4 or 5 Big Ten teams alone next year already. So it's these schools are not going anywhere. Not going anywhere.
My thing is that let's say the quiet part out loud. No one has been killing the transfer portal game in the Big Ten. Like, I get it. Ohio State got the splashes. They had Quinshawn, and they got Will Howard, and they got Caleb Downs. None of them are top paid athletes from the portal from last year. None of them are top 10 in highest paid NIL. Oregon went and got Dylan Gabriel. Oregon, you guys brought in somebody else, Jabbar Muhammad defensively, and Evan Stewart. Like, I believe Evan Stewart was in the top 10, but Jabbar and Dylan Gabriel were not in the top 10 of, highest paid transfers in the portal. So, and then Oregon, they spent a ton of NIL money. Yeah, Ohio State spent a ton of NIL money. A lot of it is on the people that they already have in the building. Like Michigan, they just shelled out a ton of money on Bryce Underwood. They got him to their team, and that's really what it is. Like, outside of that, Michigan's going to be able to recruit without the NIL, let alone, you throw in the NIL. Of course, you're going to have more interest there, and especially if they're not, afraid to spend it there. Oregon obviously is always going to have good recruiting classes, but they don't need to spend the NIL to get those classes, but they can And Ohio State's going to be the same way. Like, we talk about Ohio State this year. We talk about Michigan last year. Obviously, NIL was a thing last year. Michigan had a great roster because a lot of those kids bought into the culture and they came back to school. Ohio State this year, they had a great roster because a lot of those kids bought into the culture, and a lot of they were senior led and all that. Oregon next year, you already see a lot of the guys are deciding to come back to school that really had potential to be pro. Evan Stewart being the main leader there. So I think you're going to see that more and more in the Big Ten. Schools like Alabama, schools like Georgia, they don't have that culture there. Georgia quite literally does not have a culture. It is you play your three, or you stay for three, and then you go to the league and you do whatever the hell you want to while you're there, because there's no discipline to be had by anyone in that coaching staff or in the front office or anywhere in that entire program. You talk about Alabama, Nick Saban's no longer there. That is not the same program that they once were, and they're going to have to build back to that. Meanwhile, you got Ohio State with Ryan Day, who's been there for as long as he has. You have Michigan, who Sherrone Moore is a new coach, but he knows what it takes to be a champion. He was on the roster when they just won their championship. You got Dan Lanning over at Oregon, where all he knows how to do is at this point is recruit and find ways to be successful with what he has. You look at Penn State with James Franklin. As much as we talk shit about him, the guy can coach. It just happens to come up a little bit smaller in the bigger games, but Penn State is always going to be a respectable team. And Penn State's not even one of those teams that go crazy in the portal or with NIL either. So I just think that we are in a new age now, where the old days, the SEC was doing all this backdoor shady stuff under the table that nobody cared about. Now it's all out in the open. Now everything's even, and it's a completely different ball game. And the college football landscape is changing because of it.
Well, I can't argue with you on that. Anything else you guys want to say about these final rankings before we get back to other news?
I mean, I think the only interesting portion of this is that I think there's a lot of really good teams. And I know we're going to get into it more next week, but I think there's a lot of really good teams who ended the season strong who aren't on this list. Like, a couple that come to mind for me would be Florida, Michigan, of course, as much as I hate to say it. Like, those would be the two right away that come to mind that I think 100% are going to be in that top 25, come preseason next year. But it's also going to be interesting to see how many of these teams are just like a flash in the pan, like an Indiana, SMU. Can they continue that success? Obviously, Indiana's losing a ton. SMU, they're bringing back their quarterback, but can they, ride that wave of, dominating the ACC, or does Miami put forth a better battle? Does Clemson, get back to their dominance in the ACC? So that's really the one thing that I'm looking forward to seeing, as time moves on.
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll get into it more next week, but I think you will have a more, I will say, predictable 12 teams next year. Not saying it's going to be easy to decide who's going to win it, but I think it'll be a very packed blue blood college football playoff next year.
Well, it'll be interesting. I guess we'll have to see who we all think is going to be next year's college football playoff next week when we do our next year's picks. But we're going to jump into another conference, and that's the ACC. And the ACC this last week has been making changes to their. I'm sorry, I cannot talk today. But the ACC wants to make changes to the conference championship. They want to make it more of a playoff format with the 2 seed and the 3 seed playing off against each other for a chance to play against the number 1 seed in the ACC. I'm not really sure what the purpose of that would be. Not to mention logistically, you'd have to have every ACC team play in week 0, or you would have to extend a week out and play the same week as Army Navy. So there's a lot of moving parts there. But do you guys think this could happen? Do you think this is the way college football is going to go? Or do you think this is the ACC just trying to reinvent the wheel?
I think it's ACC grasping at straws, if I'm being honest. I think they're trying a way to create excitement and try to make sure they try to somehow keep Florida State, Miami, Clemson, and all these teams from leaving and going somewhere else. I don't understand the point of it. Are you going to shorten your conference schedule by a week? That's the only way this works. Because if any of these teams make the college football playoff, they don't have the extra week to do it. And why you would make 2 of your teams play an extra game and then possibly head into the college football playoff. Like it makes zero sense to me. I get the excitement level, and I guess, kind of doing it in like a ladder format, I guess is kind of cool and would be different because nobody else does it. But at the same time, I mean, conference championships are great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we have a ton of them. So does Cottrell. Like but you want, you want the big one at the end. And I feel like this is making it harder for teams in your conference to achieve that. So it makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Agreed. And I think the big thing here is if you're a team like, let's say SMU, for example, and you're not the number one team, but you're having a great year, you're in prime position to be number two. Why would a team like Clemson or Miami just be able to, flow through the season and get a secondary shot? Like, you have tiebreakers and all this stuff for a reason. Like, you've never had an issue. I get it. This past year was close because you had Clemson, Miami, and SMU who were all right there and, could have all played in the ACC championship game there. But it's a lot of reinventing the wheel here. I mean, this just makes no sense. Not only is it not even an extra game, but not only that, it's a tough game going into another tough game for the ACC championship, leading into either a first round game for that team or they may get a bye. I mean, the way this year went, you never know. Clemson won the ACC. They didn't get a bye. So they'd be going right into another potential game and maybe even a road game at that in Clemson's case here. To me, it just doesn't make sense here, and it's really no need for it. It's not generating any new revenue. It's not, a competition thing. It's not like if it was the Big Ten, I wouldn't condone it or I wouldn't go for it. But at least I can hear the argument more. You got Oregon, you got Penn State, you got Ohio State, you got Michigan. Like, it's always tight, and one loss can be the difference or make or break, for an opportunity for a chance at the conference championship. But at the end of the day, you got 11 other games to make it happen. So for me, I just think it's the ACC trying to figure out a way to be different and to keep eyes on them because they see that they don't really have what it takes right now to put forth a whole bunch of teams in the CFP.
Yeah, I can't argue with either of you on that. And that, what you guys are saying, it just seems. I mean, honestly, the reason my mind says this is not going to happen is just logistically, it makes no sense. We had a whole conversation earlier in the season regarding the Army-Navy game, how it's special because it has its own weekend. I feel like something like this would extend it to have another event on that same weekend, or you'd be forcing all of your ACC teams to play a week early to allow for them to have a bye week, before the conference championship game. So there's a lot of logistical things that would have to change in the conference itself. And I feel like it's just them trying to put the best. I get where they're coming from. Like, we want to put the best teams possible into the CFP, the teams that are hottest at the moment, because just like Ohio State, they went into the playoff hot when they beat Tennessee and just kept riding that wave. I think if the ACC just wants to put their best team in because Clemson got beat in that first game, because SMU got beat in that first game, it's just their chance to put the best product out into the college football playoff. I think that's kind of why they're recommending it. Do not think it's going to work. Do not think it's a great idea, but we'll see. There will be more to come out about it.
But to that exact point, Alex, I'm so glad that you said that. If you're telling me that Clemson was your best team, SMU was your second best team, SMU got dog walked on the field by Penn State, and while they made it entertaining, for the most part, Clemson got the business from Texas in their game. And now you want to feed me that the third best team should have this extra opportunity to fend to potentially make the college football playoff. Like, I'm just not buying it. So I'm glad you said that, because it literally is the literal counterpoint to whatever they could possibly be thinking.
Bill, anything else you want to say about the ACC and their possible conference championship tournament that might make an appearance?
No, it's stupid. They should move on and think of something else. Tell their football teams to get better. Stop coming up with stupid ideas.
Boom. Heard it from the man here first. Hashtag no stupid ideas. All right. We're going to move on to some news in the SEC with Texas. We got Steve Sarkisian getting a 7-year deal. That's just adding one additional year onto his contract, totaling his contract up to $74.2 million, fully guaranteed now, 10.6 per year. Texas went from 5-7 his first season to 13-3 this year and back-to-back college football semifinals. Do you think Sarkisian is going to be that long-term fix at Texas, or do you think we may be seeing him also getting calls from the NFL here in a few years?
Well, that's why he got that extra year. That extra year was a thank you and stop talking to NFL teams. That's what that was.
I'll let you go.
I would say this. I would say 7 years for a major program like that hasn't won anything. Like if he has a championship under his belt, okay, then fine. I mean, most schools, you get a championship and a couple Big 12s under your belt, they'll pretty much tell you can stay there until you want to leave. But listen, he's a big name. I think he's a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. He hasn't got over that hump yet for me. I think he gets left out of kind of the Lane Kiffin, Brian Kelly, James Franklin discussion more than he should. And again, I mean, listen, I remember before they started going through coaches, Mac Brown won a national championship, and 3 years later, he was gone. They ran him out of town. Texas fans are not patient people. So I think they're looking at it like, oh, he's on the cusp of winning one. That's not winning one. 7 years is a long time. Money doesn't really matter because they have so much of it. So if this goes to shit in 4 years and they have to buy him out, they don't really care. But excuse me,
bless you, sir.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, he had phone calls from Dallas, and there was a couple other teams that called about him possibly being, an offensive coordinator, which came out. So for Texas, it's a smart move, and you hope that all goes away and he doesn't flirt with the NFL again. But 7 years is a long time.
I mean, I look at it like this. Sark is still young. I mean, he's 50. That's young compared to a lot of other coaches around. That's at both levels, from college to the NFL. And I think that it's smart for Texas to get out ahead of it. And I'm sure, I don't have the specifics of the contract, but I'm sure it probably also upped his buyout number as well, just by adding on that extra year and then making it fully guaranteed. To me, I think that Sark had a taste of the NFL life. He was the OC with Atlanta for that 1 year, and ultimately went back to college. I feel like there's just certain guys that feel like they're going to be in college forever, and then there are others who aren't. And Sark, to me, never gave that feeling that he wants to be the guy. It doesn't feel like he wants to be a Texas legend. Like, I don't see him being the guy that wants to win 3, 4, 5, national championships at Texas. There's some guys I can, like Dan Lanning. Like, I do think Dan Lanning may be a hot name moving forward just because of, the success that he brings. But I could see Dan Lanning staying at Oregon for the next 10 years. I can see Marcus Freeman staying at Notre Dame for the next 10 years. Now that Ryan Day has a championship, I can see him staying at Ohio State for the next 6-7 years if that's what he wants to do. But for me, Sark never really gives that vibe. It's like, all right, I'm trying to win now while I can, but at the same time, just seeing how many stops he's had along the way, I feel like if an NFL team comes calling and it's the right team, then I feel like he's going to go. But it's a smart move for Texas. I have no issue with it. But to me, Sark just doesn't feel like a cornerstone of that Texas program.
No, I mean, again, I think there's only a few jobs you would leave Texas for. Obviously, I think one of them is, if Kellen DeBoer doesn't get the ship straightened out in Alabama in the next 2 years, Sark coached there under Saban. I would assume he's probably one of their first phone calls, probably along with Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning is the only one I think I disagree with you on, and I say this, and I'm not even busting Alex's balls. I think that guy, he's so young, and he's gotten success so early in his career. I think that guy has a lot of goals, and I think I think the worst thing that could happen for Oregon, and this is the weirdest thing in the world to say, I think if they win a couple of national championships in the next 5 years,
Agree.
I think Dan Lanning is going to the NFL because I think he's going to challenge himself, and I think the draw is just going to be too much to be because he then gets into the hardball role, can I go win on the other level, and can I do both? Because nobody's done it, so it's I think that draw becomes too much for him. So
I hear you on that, and I actually do agree. And I love to hear Alex's take on it because he probably thinks Dan Lanning is going to be there for the rest of his life.
Rest of his life.
But my pushback would be that I think a lot of these guys, because Oregon is as much as they've hit the portal, they've been recruiting high school kids hard, and I don't think Dan Lanning would be. I mean, we see coaches leave all the time after recruiting classes, but I don't think Dan Lanning would be pushing as hard as he is through the high school recruiting if he didn't have a long-term plan of being at Oregon. So I look at it like this. I think he's going to be there for at least the next 3 to 4, almost guaranteed, unless they go on that run. They win back-to-back natties, then I think you get in the territory. But just with Oregon's history, I don't see that happening. But Alex, I would love to hear how do you view Dan Lanning and just other coaches in their tenure at the schools would start getting this kind of deal?
Yeah, I think Dan Lanning, I think he's going to be at Oregon for a while. I think the only school I might worry about taking him would be Georgia, if that head coaching job were to open up, just because of his history there. He's got family there as well. That would be the only job that really would concern me if that opened up. But I think he'll be an Oregon Duck coach for at least the next 5 to 10 years. I'm saying he's not going nowhere. They're going to win 17 national championships in the next 14 years. All right, we're already the Wolf's national champion this year. I know you saw that. All right, the Wolf poll has Oregon as the number 1 team and national champion. We're hanging banners, people.
Hashtag math over merit.
That's right. We're going to make that trend. Hashtag math over merit. Put it on the screen. We're going to make it trend. No, honestly, Dan Lanning is intriguing because Bill makes a very good point that he is very young, very early in his career. This is really his first head coaching job. And what is your first head coaching job but a stepping stone to your second? And I wonder how long it's going to take him to take that step. Is it going to be a job from the NFL that lures him away? Is it going to be, a big school like Georgia that takes him from Oregon? I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I think he's going to be there for, like you said, probably 4 or 5 years. And I think Oregon will try to tie him down long term. I think they'll promise him. I think they'll give him the Mike Bellotti treatment. Like, hey, you can stay here as long as you want to. When you want to retire, you want to be done coaching, you got the athletic director job right there waiting for you, which is what they did for Mike Bellotti back in the early 2000s when he retired. So it'll be interesting to see how they play it. But if Nike doesn't want him to leave, they think he's the right fit for Oregon, there's other ways to get that man some money. So
Alex, this is the one and only time I'm going to give Oregon credit between this show and next week. You said your first head coaching job is normally the stepping stone to your next one. I think Oregon has done a great job of. Because I do think that used to be the case. Obviously, you saw with Chip Kelly. You saw how he made the move to, catapult to the next level. I think Oregon is in a position now to where that is no longer the case. And I say that because, 1, I think Dan Lanning has done a good job of creating culture there. 2, obviously now with NIL being a thing, I just talked about how, they don't just shell out enough money in the portal. They also do it the right way and go through high school recruiting to develop players and things like that. They do a great job of that. You had a top 5 class this year, and I only expect that to continue to happen. And number 3 is, this, I don't know if this is a topic for today, if it's a topic for tomorrow or, next week, next year, whenever we get to it. Where does Georgia, I'm not saying they're going to be down. I'm not saying they're not going to make the playoff, but at some point, I know Kirby's got 2 championships, in recent history, but are we sure that Georgia is going to be a more attractive job than Oregon? in 4 to 5 years. And that's where I'm at. Like, I think
Honestly,
Oregon is one of those jobs where I don't view them as a true blue blood, but I look at the landscape of college football. I don't know any way you can slice it where that's not a top 10 job in the country.
I was literally, there's the one thing I wanted to say is when I was going to jump back in, I don't think Dan Lanning leaves for Georgia. I really think the only way he leaves is for the pros. I don't think, to Cottrell's point, I don't know what is more attractive at Georgia that he doesn't have at Oregon, or they wouldn't give him if he asked for it. He already has more money.
He turned down Bama already. He turned down Bama last year.
That's what I mean. Listen, I think there's more to that than meets the eye, and I think Kellen DeBoer is kind of learning that. If I was going to take the Bama job, I'll take it after Kellen DeBoer. Nick Saban is not the guy I want to follow in that job. So it is. But that being said, yeah, I mean it's absolutely a top 10, top 12 job. I mean, facilities, the money, the support. They got to make your goddamn stadium bigger, but to raise more revenue.
Y'all ears will burst if we had more of us in there.
That's not just about that. Listen. Here's one thing you have to remember:
eardrums bursting,
money.
Here's one thing you have to remember:
we have enough.
Phil Knight's not going to live forever, and I promise you, once he's gone,
yes, he will.
His estate will not support Oregon how he is.
They are going to freeze him until they figure out how to make him live forever. And as long as he's still frozen, we good to go.
So when your stadium holds 110,000 people, you can raise a lot of revenue a lot faster than you can at 55,000. But that being said, neither here nor there. I agree with Cottrell. If you want to go into like history and the lore of the SEC, which we just talked about and all that, that's fine. And I would say if maybe Oregon was still in the Pac-12, you could make an argument there. They're both in the top 10. So it's like, how much better of a job is Georgia than Oregon?
This is a good topic idea, though. Top 10 programs you'd want as a coach.
We can do that next week. It's fine.
That's a pretty good one too.
Write it down so we don't forget.
Write that down.
So it's I'm not leaving what I have there, packing up my family, moving them across the country for that job. I really don't. I really believe that. I don't think I would. I think if Dan Lanning leaves, I think it's to go to the NFL.
Well, I guess only time will tell. I do think I like Cottrell's 4 to 5 year timeline. I think it's a little bit longer than that, only because I think he would like his kids to finish school in one place. Now that they've settled in, I think that he's a very family-oriented guy. He's just from his interviews, when he talks about his family, you can tell. And I think that he'd want his kids to probably at least finish high school where they're at now before I moved on. So I think that's why I say, between 6 and 10 years, because I'm not sure how old his kids are. But yeah, so that's what my opinion is on there. But I think Sark is a great fit for Texas. He's done great things since he's been there. Like I said, taking them from 5-7 his first year to 13-3 and back-to-back college football playoff semifinals. Anything else you guys want to throw in on coaching, Sark, 7-year deal? Anything else you guys want to throw in on that topic?
I'm good there.
Cool. Well, then we'll wrap it up with some Big Ten news. I like that. I got the ACC, got the SEC, wrapping up with the Big Ten. I didn't even plan that. It just worked out so nice. But Indiana eliminates 25 jobs. Originally reported that they fired or laid off 25 people. Not the case. They just eliminated 25 jobs, laying off 13 people, leaving 12 jobs unfilled, equaling 25 total jobs. But the reason that they did this is that revenue sharing is imminent. And it's causing universities everywhere to cut costs. In Indiana, like I just said, they cut 25 jobs from their athletic department to counter the imbalance. I think Indiana's, kind of prepping ahead of time a little earlier than they needed to. Indiana is choosing not to fill the 12 open positions, cutting roughly 10% of their payroll in that department. Do you think we're going to start seeing this across all universities, or do you think other universities are going to come up with a little more creative ways to, one, keep jobs, but two, come up with that revenue sharing?
I'm not going to lie to you. I have a strong opinion on this, especially because it's Indiana. Not like a Bill hate for Indiana or anything like that, but for me, I think this is blatantly obvious that they're being cheap. I mean, they get a cut of every game, like every game that Ohio State played in the college football playoff, they're getting a cut of that. Like it's evenly getting split out. It's not just going to Ohio State because they won. They're getting a cut of all of that. So, or Oregon playing the game in the college football playoff, they're getting a cut of that. Penn State getting their wins in the college football playoff, they're getting a cut of that. Indiana made the college football playoff. They are getting money for doing that as well. So I just don't understand. You bring in Cignetti, and his first year there, he has this kind of success. I don't think, as a team, he's come out and said it. He's won everywhere that he's been. Like, I don't think you brought him in to be a flash in the pan and, just have the one great year, make to the playoff, and that's just that. He's going to have success moving forward. The football team is going to make money. They're going to be able to spend money with NIL. I think this is a case of Indiana being a little cheap and not realizing how everything works. Like, I think they're being selfish. They're seeing the money coming in. They're like, all right, well, if we don't have to pay these 15, ultimately what you said is 25 jobs, we don't got to pay these 25 people essentially to fill these spots here. That's more money for us. That's more money we can use on this or more money we can use on that. I think it was a very selfish decision, especially after the year that the Big Ten had this year, and especially the year that Indiana had this year.
I'm going to make this even more simple. I promise you, this is the most money that football program has ever made in the history of that university. Because there's no way that it didn't. Like Cottrell said, they're already getting their share of the Big Ten money, the Big Ten network money. They made the college football playoff, and then they get money from Penn State and Ohio State, who went the furthest and won the whole damn thing. There's no way the revenue coming in to that program this year was higher any other year ever. They don't even make bowl games half the time. So they're not even getting bowl game bonuses. They got all that this year. This is them being cheap. This is them being stupid. This is making them give me another reason to not like Indiana.
I'm with you, Bill.
And here's the thing too. Indiana's almost playing like poor here. Like their other programs make a lot of money. Indiana actually is a very good athletic school. Their soccer teams are always good. The basketball team, even when they stink, Assembly Hall is packed. And that place isn't small either. So I don't get this. This is somebody pocketing money that shouldn't be pocketing money. I think it's a really, really bad look. And it kind of puts a little bit of a somber ending on, what was a really, really good year for the football program.
Yeah, I think the kicker for me is that they mentioned that some of these people had been in their positions for years. Some people over a decade. So they, like I said, eliminated 12 jobs that were unfilled, and then laid off 13 employees to make the, like I said, revenue sharing was inevitable. What was it that Tennessee is doing, or somebody's doing something really with like the ticket price, the raising ticket prices? Yeah, they got QR codes
on
And then, but there's also the one, I think it was Tennessee, where they're going to increase season tickets or 6 season ticket prices to help pay for revenue sharing. I think it was Tennessee who was going to do that. But there's colleges coming up with creative ways to, increase the revenue to pay the players as they deserve to be paid. However, they're not cutting jobs. So I hope that this is not a trend that other universities follow. I hope that Indiana is, in the minority and with making this sort of, financial decision for their programs, because obviously you don't want to see people possibly losing their retirement, possibly, losing, who knows what they're, losing by losing their jobs. Obviously this is not the time to be unemployed. So I hope that this is not the direction that other universities going, but that's really kind of all I have to say on the subject.
I'll say this too, and I'll close with this, like on my side of things. If you're in the Big Ten or you're in the SEC, you should never be worried about money from a football standpoint. At this point, I mean, the college football playoff has been expanded. every single year, unless something absolutely catastrophic happens, you are each going to have at minimum 3 teams representing your conference in the college football playoff. You will have money. The TV deals are only going to get bigger and bigger every single year. College football is a huge phenomenon right now. There is no team in either of those conferences that should ever need to cut jobs to feel like, that's how they're going to make up for this new revenue sharing model.
I agree. I mean, you go back to the attendance. Like, there's no way they didn't set an attendance record for the football program this year. Like, their games were all sold out, deservedly so. They started the season 10-0. But, like, that should all be public information. I would love to find how much money the football team made this year. And I can't think of another year Indiana was anywhere near as good. And obviously, this is back way before TV and everything else. So there's no way they made the amount of money they made this year, any other year. It sucks. It's like I said, it's a really, really shitty way to cap a really good year.
Yeah, I was looking up what you were saying, and all I can find is for 2023, they had the football team revenue brought in $144 million in 2023, but nothing up for 2024 yet. Obviously, the fiscal year is about to end here soon, so those numbers should be available here within the next couple months.
But just to put that
it
in
would be interesting
perspective,
to compare.
What was Indiana's record in 2023?
Aren't they like 4-8 or like 3-9 or something like that?
So they were pretty bad. They weren't bowl eligible.
Let me see record 2023. Yeah, they were. Maybe they were even a 1-win team. I don't even know. They're looking up right now. They are. Come on, computer. They were bad. That's a 3-9. Yep, they were 3-9 2023.
There you go. So a 3-9 team that didn't obviously they didn't go to a bowl game. They only got
one Big Ten team made the playoff. They
got money from Michigan last year. So the rest of that is attendance, Big Ten network revenue, and stuff like that. And they still made $144 million off a 3-9 team. What do you think it was this year? So you're telling me even let's just for semantics, let's say it's only $6 million more for this year. You couldn't pay those 15 people out of $6 million budget. It's a bad look, and I promise you, the number this year is going to be way higher than 150.
At least double.
It won't be double. It won't be double.
It's going to start with a 2, though. So you're telling me?
Yeah.
So you're telling me?
Only reason why I say that is because I know last year, and granted, this year will be different. 12-team playoff, more money. I know Ohio State was at $270 million in revenue, like
for last year,
like total, for last year,
yeah.
So they're going to be well over 185.
Yeah. So you're telling me an extra $40-50 million you're making this year, you couldn't find out how to pay 15 people? Which, and again, we're not talking about people that are making $4 million a year.
Bucks. Exactly.
These people probably aren't making $100,000 a year. And
they said that they didn't lay off anybody from the program, none of the coaching staff, nobody associated with the team.
Oh, of course, it's not going to be from the coaching staff.
Athletic department, athletic department.
It's a crap.
You figure at Indiana, you're not. None of the people are probably. I mean, at most, they're probably max not $100K. So you figure 1.5 mil. You didn't have that after making $50 million more than you did the year before. I don't know. Not buying it.
Yeah. And again, that's just the football team.
As if Bill needed another reason to hate Indiana even more.
We might have to kick Indiana. We might have to kick Indiana out the Midwest because that's not how we roll over here.
out the Big Ten.
Agreed.
Get out of here. But hey, that's what we have for Break the Huddle tonight, though. Or this morning. Gosh, I feel like I'm so tired. I feel like it is still nighttime. But no, that's it for Break the Huddle.
All right. Well, let's get into the elephant in the room here. Monday night, Ohio State won the national championship. Beat Notre Dame, which turned out to be, I guess, a little bit more of an exciting game than Cottrell probably would have liked it to be in the second half. But I'm not gonna go into too much here. I'm gonna let Cottrell start and let Cottrell have his roses here, and then me and Alex could fill in afterwards. But
Ohio State sucks.
Jesus. But Cottrell, like I said, take it away, brother. Let me say what you want to say, and me and Alex will fill in the blanks afterwards here.
I mean, the big thing for me is that this game was. I look at the first drive that Notre Dame had, and Riley Leonard was the catalyst. He was getting bumped and hit, and he was taking every single one of those hits and doing what he had to do to get first down. I didn't think that was something that would be sustainable for them, just because he was taking some big time hits, and I thought eventually Ohio State's defense would adjust, and they did. So definitely, give the defense credit for that. However, as big as that lead got, I was celebrating. Once we went up, it was 28-7 going into halftime, and we were getting the ball back. I knew it was over. And sure enough, went down, scored again. It was 31-7, and at that point, I felt comfortable. Chip Kelly started to get a little bit. I don't want to say scared, but it started to get very conservative. Conservative would be the words that I'll use. And offense did not look the same at all in that second half. And then Emeka Egbuka has the fumble, and I swear to you, at that moment, I'm like, well, this is where everything's going to start to change, because I have been preaching for the last 3 or 4 weeks that Notre Dame is a team that will smell and hunt the blood in the water, and as soon as they find it, they will pounce and they will hunt you down. And that's exactly what they did. Fumble happened, they go down, they get the touchdown, they get the 2-point conversion, and next thing you know, it's 31-23, and Ohio State's got the ball, and there's 5 minutes left on the clock. For Notre Dame, I mean, I will say the one thing about that last possession, I don't know how in the world you think it's a good idea to leave Jeremiah Smith one-on-one. I think everybody in that stadium, as soon as they saw there was no safety over top of him, knew the ball was going in his direction. Now, granted, is it, a deep pass, and you're not thinking that on, third and whatever it was, 10, 11, and Ohio State's been super conservative those first 2 plays. I could potentially hear that argument, but at the same time, it's the best receiver in the country. I'm not leaving him one-on-one with the season on the line. Like, at worst, I'm doubling him and saying, hey, if Emeka beats me, we're going to still blitz. But if Emeka beats me, if Carnell Tates beats me, so be it. Like, we got to live and die by somebody else. We can't let the best player on the offense beat us. And ultimately, they did a good job pretty much all game of, keeping Jeremiah at bay. But then you let him go off for the 60-yard pass there, and that leads to the field goal. And that was really all she wrote there. But yeah, I mean, I can't say really too much more about it. It's so satisfying after a month and a half ago, and we lose to Michigan. I'm telling you guys in the group chat, I've been keeping it real since August. It is beat Michigan or win a national championship. Those are your only 2 options. And if you're good, you do both. I'd love for you to do both. I mean, that just make my whole year. But those are your only 2 options, Ryan Day. And he took the harder path, but to his credit, he owned up to his mess ups earlier in the year, and he went out and the team rallied behind him, and they dominated the entire way.
Alex, you want to go? You want me to go?
I'm sorry, I almost threw up in my mouth. You should probably go.
I'm going to touch on a couple things here. First and foremost, I'm going to start with the pass that Cottrell was talking about at the end. That is, I'm not going to say it's a fireable offense, because I actually really, really like Marcus Freeman, and I think he has a crazy bright future ahead of him. I think he is the absolute right guy to be at Notre Dame, and I do think eventually he will probably win one. But like Cottrell said, you have to know your blitz is not beginning home at all night. So why you're even blitzing on that play is beyond me. If you want to show it and back out of it, that's fine. Keep somebody in on Will Howard's to spy, and drop the other. You guys have you've 6 guys to cover 3 people. Like, figure it out. You put the safety over top, for Jeremiah, and then you got 4 people to cover 2 people. And if Will Howard runs and makes the play and beats you, I can live with that. I cannot live with lining Jeremiah Smith out wide by himself on that side of the field, no safety help over top, and the kid's already given him a 10-yard cushion. Like Cottrell said, everybody in the stadium, as soon as they Will Howard had to come to the line and look over them and be like, really?
He said,
right.
yeah, he had to be looking at Ryan Day like, you might as well size my ring up.
Yeah. Like, you knew it's where it was going. Like, there's no other place for it to go. That is a huge mental mistake at a really big time. Again, I don't want to crucify Marcus Freeman for him because I actually really, really like him. But that being said, if this was Ole Miss or if this is Penn State or somebody or LSU, we would be ripping those guys if this was them. So there's got to be some accountability there. Al Golden has already since left, and he took the job. Where do you go? The Bengals?
Cincinnati, yep.
Bengals took the DC job with the Bengals, which I think is a weird hire, but whatever. My other thing is this. I think Riley Leonard played his heart out, and I get all that. Jeremiah Love, 4 carries.
Dude, he's hurt.
He's hurt. He's this. No, he's not
buying it.
Dude, 4. There's no way he's only going to carry 4 times in the national championship game if he's not hurt.
I just don't think that was the game plan.
If he's out there, he
wasn't.
If he was out there,
no.
If it was their game, I'm sorry, Bill. I have a lot to say. I'm sorry for interrupting you. I apologize.
It's fine.
Namaste.
It's fine. He sat there on the damn sideline all night with his helmet on. Like I hate to say it. I think they knew they were up against it in certain aspects of the game, and they were. Listen, both sides of the ball, Ohio State has more talent. Coaching, again, Ryan Day, I think when it's all said and done, they're probably pretty equal, but Ryan Day's got the experience. Like, he's been there before.
He's got a better staff as a whole. I
would agree with that, too. Brian Hartline, especially. Chip Kelly is a great coordinator. He's a scumbag of a human being, but he's a good coordinator. And then obviously Jim Knowles is an all-time DC type guy. So, they were outmanned, and I think they knew it. And I think they knew they had to kind of thread a needle through a really little space. And if they did and they came out the other side, they had a shot. And I think it was run Riley Leonard, a lot of design runs and, throw the ball when they could and kind of not take the air out of the ball, but just really limit how many times Ohio State got the ball and maybe make them feel like they have to rush. And then it just didn't work in the first half. Made adjustments in the second half. Like I said, they didn't roll over. I thought Ohio State got really complacent, which is, again, something I just don't understand. I've talked about it so many times, even with Cottrell. I know he doesn't get it either. But they took their foot off the gas a little bit. And then, obviously, because like I said, if they don't get that 3rd and 11, that's a really interesting game. Because Notre Dame's going to get the ball back. I don't know how aggressive Ohio State would have been defensively, not wanting to give it the big play per se. I don't think they'd go into full prevent, but I think they're probably trying to limit the big play and run the clock out before they can get out, get down the field and score. And then Cottrell made a funny comment earlier. We were talking about it. I don't know what kind of crazy play Notre Dame would have ran for the 2-point because I think they emptied the bag for whatever. I can't imagine they practiced more, gadget plays than that practice, for the last 10 days. But overall, listen, I'll say this. I picked them in the beginning of the year, and I picked them for a multitude of reasons. And not to make the Michigan comparison, but I thought Michigan showed a lot of people, and Ohio State, Ohio State has a good culture. If you get the kids, that really want to be there, bought back in, make them come back for the 4th year, which they did. And that class is very accomplished. It really is. I mean, they have a natty now, but you got to tip your cap to Will Howard. You do. I know, Alex, you don't like him, but at the end of the day, I mean, he started the game 12 for 12. Not going to be anything other than probably a backup in the NFL, but if that's the last meaningful game that he really plays in, then I mean, he won a national championship. He came over and he did the job. He was the bridge quarterback to all the kids they have coming up next year. They brought in a couple really selective, pieces to help. Caleb Downs, who was really, really good last year, but a little bit over aggressive and, would get caught sometimes, and Michigan exposed him a little bit, but he then, went to Jim Knowles and Jim Knowles was like, I'm going to actually give you more freedom. I just want you to be aggressive and go make plays. And he's, for my money, he's a top 5 defensive player in college football. And Junkins they brought in, which was a huge, backup punch of Travion. Curious about your thoughts on him now, Cottrell, because I know I feel like the rumors were kind of out there and it was kind of leaning like he was coming back. And then his last 2 games, he's kind of put on a show. And I don't know if he can go back now.
No, I mean, I'm not going to say there's no room for him because we definitely would take him back and he'd be the starter here. But I just don't know how much he can. Like, I don't know what his draft stock would change. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think people, if you want to draft Quinshawn, like, what you're getting with him. Like, him coming back to school, even if he sets the world on fire, has a ton of yards, like, I don't think it makes him any more undeniable next year. I think he's a second-round pick, and he can go to a team and be a starter. But I think he'd be that anyway next year if he went back to school.
To be honest, if he came back, he'd be this year's Ollie Gordon. Who should have left last year. This is what I'm saying. Like,
I get what you're saying.
Comes back next year.
He's coming back. He's coming back to a way better team than Ollie Gordon did, though.
No, but his stock dropped so bad. Like, all Quinshawn can do is hurt his stock at this point.
I agree. I agree with you. I agree with your sentiment there. Yeah, for sure.
But just to finish up, I thought, never in my wildest dreams that I think we were gonna beat you guys this year. But when I heard all those guys were coming back and everything, and then adding who they added, I thought they were the best on paper. I thought they were the best roster in college football. And that ended up, being the way, it all played out at the end. So I thought they were the better football team on Monday night for the majority of the game. Again, I tip my cap to Notre Dame for getting there. I think it was a hell of a run for them. Great learning experience for Marcus Freeman and some of those kids. But questionable play calling. I don't think Love is hurt. His 4 carries, he looked fine. So unless he did something on that last carry, I just don't think it was part of the game plan. I have a problem with that. So unless he's 100% definitely hurt, he's your best offensive player. I have a really hard time losing a championship game with him touching the ball 4 times. But other than that, I think that's, I'm not surprised the way it played out. I got the margin of victory right, just not to score. But I thought it was a good football game. I think Notre Dame made adjustments and came out in the second half, and they fought. They definitely didn't roll over. So credit to them. Tip your cap to Ohio State. Very good football team. Won the national championship. And now the good part is, Cottrell gets to go to sleep and sleep easy for the next, 2 or 3 years, no matter what happens. And 5. It's true. It's a 5-year buffer. The sad part is it's over, but, we get to start again in a couple months. So it'll be fun. Now you go on your little rant. Go ahead.
I mean, look, Notre Dame lost themselves this game more than Ohio State won this game.
Oh boy,
and this is no. Look, when I say what I have, Bill, can I mute him? Look, once I say what I have to say, you're gonna kind of get where I'm coming from. The very first drive, what did Notre Dame do? They played Notre Dame football. They threw the ball 4 times. It's a 15-play drive. They threw the ball 4 times, and they ran the ball down Ohio State's throat, primarily with my main man, Riley Leonard, right? However, after they had their touchdown, had success, Ohio State came back out, answered with a touchdown of their own. That's great. Notre Dame knew this was going to be a battle. What did Notre Dame come out and do the rest of the first half? 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And what were they doing on those offensive play calls? They were starting off every single drive with an incomplete pass. What did I say last week they needed to do to win this game? They needed to control the clock, and they needed to get they could not get in third and long situations. The first drive, what were they doing? They were getting in second and third and short situations, and they were controlling the clock 100%, had that ball for 9 minutes and 54 seconds, almost 10 minutes of the first quarter. That's Notre Dame football. Then they got away from that once Ohio State answered. They never went back to it again. Just like you said, Love didn't get any carries. I think he was hurt. I think there's no way Marcus Freeman plans a whole 60-minute game plan that only gives him the ball 4 times if he's 100% healthy. I think that's absolutely crazy to think that any coach would do that. Not to mention, fourth quarter, you got 4.5 minutes left in the game. You're down multiple scores. It was 4 minutes or 9 minutes? But you're down multiple scores, 9 minutes left. You're down multiple. Yeah, you're down 16 at this point. You got 2 touchdowns and 2 2-point conversions away from tying the game. And you go for a field goal at 4th and goal. I think it was on the 11-yard line. No, it was 4th and 9. It was like it was inside. It was in the red zone. Like, you cannot call a field goal there. You have to go for it. It's the national championship. Ohio State's defense has been owning you all night. You have momentum. Your kicker has struggled all season long, and you're going to put him in that situation to still go down 2 possessions? Like, that right there for me is what blew my mind, and that was, for me, the worst coaching decision of the evening. I'm proud Notre Dame fought a way back into the game. Obviously, it was an 11-point game. That 3-point field goal with 38 seconds left or whatever was left on the clock kind of salts the game away, put that 11-point spread. But I love the way Notre Dame fought in that second half. Obviously, Cottrell, congratulations. Still Big Ten champs, still proud of the season the Ducks had. You got the Natty, congratulations. Still lost to Michigan, but season's over. That's for me where Notre Dame went wrong here. They really played themselves out of this game because they stopped playing like Notre Dame.
Well, let's unpack what. Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was waiting for you to be done.
I was just going to recap what I said, that they were controlling the clock that first drive, doing Notre Dame style, and then they got away from it 100%. And it became, like I said, Riley Leonard had his best passing game of the season, percentage-wise, and yard. We had another game we had more yards, but one of his best passing games of the season, and the most passing attempts he's had in the season. And it was completely unnecessary to get him that many passes so early in the game when the running attack with him was working so well.
Well, I think we got to unpack what you said and how we got there, though. Like, I think that second drive that they had, they did start out with a pass, and you're 100% right. It was an incompletion. But what really put them behind the sticks was they had back-to-back penalties. They had the false start, and then they had the it was like a holding, or they had another penalty, and it was like 2nd and 25. And that's what ultimately stalled that second drive there. So I don't necessarily.
Right, but then what they do? They ran the ball on 2nd and 25, putting them at a 3rd and 23 situation. I'm sorry, It's a national championship. It's 2nd and 25. I'm probably not running up the middle on 2nd and 25.
While I hear you, if it's 2nd and 25, I don't know if I mean, in an obvious pass situation, do you trust Riley Leonard throwing the football? I saw what happened in the Penn State and Notre Dame game where he was just throwing the ball to anywhere on the field. So, like, I understand essentially not even necessarily trying to be conservative there, but you're like, all right, it's 2nd and 25. We're probably not going to convert this. Let's get what we can and play the field position game. But to follow that up, that next drive, you talk about them getting away from the run. The first play they ran, they had a 5-yard run with Riley Leonard. Like, that was literally the first play of their third and final drive of the first half. So it's not, to me, I don't think it was necessarily that they got away from it, but it was just that they knew that wasn't going to be something that they were going to have sustained success with. And you could talk about Jeremiah Love being hurt all you want to. I think Notre Dame came in with the game plan. They weren't going to run their running backs, because even outside of the Jeremiah Love injury or his snaps, his carries, whatever, they only ran the ball with their running backs, I believe, 8 or 9 times the entire game. They had 17 carries for Riley Leonard. So I think with that being the case and that number being in the box score, that lets me know that coming in, they said, we're going to need to get a numbers advantage by running Riley Leonard. And that's what got us here. That's what's going to get these linebackers moving in the wrong positions. And that's how we're going to have success in the running game. And Riley, we're also going to need you to pass it probably better than you have all season if we want to keep this game competitive. And in the second half, that's what Riley did. He had success by throwing the ball downfield. A lot of that was predicated because they were down by so much. They didn't have the time to run down the field and make those kind of plays there. But I also think a big part of it is that this was the game plan coming in. And while obviously it didn't work, I think they stuck to their game plan because they said, hey, this Ohio State team, they got it offensively. Like, I'm looking through the scoring summary and how each drive ended. I mean, Ohio State punted one time all game, and they had the fumble. Outside of that, they put up points every single time they had the football. So Notre Dame knew they were going to be up against it. They knew the error, the margin for error was going to be small. And I just think they tried to control the game of what they thought would work best. And ultimately, it just didn't happen.
Terrible coaching.
It wasn't his best night. I don't think no matter what happened, I don't think the outcome changes. I'll say that. I think
I'm telling you right now, if I'm Jeremiah Love and if you game plan for the national championship to only get 4 carries, I'm hitting the portal the day after the game. I'm just saying that.
I'm not hurt.
I'm going to portal. Just saying.
Somebody hit the portal right away today.
Grass ain't always greener.
Not today. On I'll say Wednesday maybe. I think it's either one of their cornerbacks or one of their wide receivers. I can't remember.
At Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Somebody it's hard to have them filter out. Yeah.
Yeah. But all right. Any final thoughts? Here we go. There it is. Oh, you gave him a cute little flag too. Who did this? Cottrell or Alex?
No, this is Alex. Look at Alex.
Oh, that's very nice of you, Alex.
Yeah, whatever.
Gave us a flag to, it's gonna be up there forever. Whoever climbs the mountain.
Can you take green boots off?
We are above green boots now. We're past the point.
I know, but I can't see green boots anymore.
That's because green boots is right below where all these guys are at. Green boots was the start of the college football playoff. Green boots is gone.
Nah, green boots in real life is way higher. Green boots is between like Texas and Notre Dame in real life.
Bill, this is a cartoon drawing of a mountain.
Just giving people historical references. That's all.
And you know what? I'm sure because of this show, green boots has gotten exponentially more popular on Google.
Probably. I saw a picture of them the other day.
Well, you know what I love about the fact about both these two teams in the college football playoff, and it's going to segue perfectly into our next segment, is that both of these teams had first-year quarterbacks in the programs, both of them part of the transfer portal, coming obviously Riley Leonard coming from Duke last year, Will Howard coming from Kansas State. There's a bunch of other guys last year that have really made a huge impact on their new teams coming in from the transfer portal. Cam Ward is another top name quarterback that came in at Washington State, transferred to Miami, ended up having 4,300 yards passing, 39 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. Dude had 10 games passing over 300 yards, 3 of them going for over 400 yards, including 3 fourth quarter comeback victories. I mean, the dude absolutely put Miami kind of back on the map. I think Mario Cristobal might have been on the hot seat without a good season this year, and I think Cam Ward came in and really kind of solidified that for him. And I think he's a huge addition from the transfer portal last year, ultimately being a Heisman Trophy finalist. Like I said, a lot of big names in the transfer portal last year that really affected teams this year. Who do you guys think that really kind of jumped out on your list?
For me, I think it's interesting because you bring up a lot of great names there. Obviously Will Howard, Riley Leonard, Cam Ward. I mean, quarterbacks are definitely always going to dominate the portal, especially when you have guys that can step in and right away pick up the system and things like that. For me, it's going to be one of the guys that we already talked about. Caleb Downs is a big one for me. Anytime the best safety in the country can hop in the portal, he was All-American as a freshman. He hops in the portal and he was the best player on our defense, this year. And I'm not saying that lightly. It's a lot of talent, a lot of guys that showed up late. Caleb Downs was the reason why that engine can go the way that it did. Being able to put him in the box and being able to just really give him free reign of the defense. He got to see what he saw, and he was able to go do whatever he thought was going to be best in that situation there. So Caleb Downs is a big one for me. And another one that probably is going to get swept under the rug a lot is going to be Kyle Kennard, the edge at South Carolina that transferred in from Georgia Tech. I think Kyle Kennard went over to South Carolina. He made himself a ton of money there. He got to play opposite of Dylan Stewart, their true freshman who was a stud. But I think he was a big part of the reason why South Carolina had a ton of success this year, and a big reason why I think South Carolina will be one of those teams to look out for in the SEC moving forward. I think Kyle Kennard was a guy who was, on the verge of being talked about, but I think the way he played this season, I know when we go through our not preseason, but our, rankings of defensive linemen for this upcoming NFL draft, he's 100% going to be within my top 5. So for me, Kyle Kennard going over from Georgia Tech to South Carolina is another one who I think is probably very much flew under the radar, but I think had a huge impact for his team.
Yes, I mean, you guys mentioned all the guys that I already had on my list. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel going to Oregon, 15-0 to start the season, and just, played kind of one bad half of football, but really took that Oregon team and put them to the next level and made them national championship contenders. Cam Ward, we already talked about, was kind of a favorite of ours last year when we first started the show. Got out of Washington State, went to Miami, where there's actually talent around him, and had a crazy good year, and might end up being the number 1 pick in the draft. And then obviously Will Howard, like I said, came in not necessarily flashy, but did his job and did what he was supposed to do. Led them to a national championship, obviously, and really played within the system, and I think helped himself. Again, I don't think he's probably anything other than a backup in the NFL, but he probably went from being a day 3 guy to a day 2 guy.
Ahead of Dylan Gabriel.
What?
Ahead of Dylan Gabriel.
Oh boy.
Highly doubt it. Dylan Gabriel's talked about round 1, baby. Let's go.
Dylan Gabriel's not
Raiders.
He's not going to the first round.
We gotta have a friendly bet, Alex. Who goes first?
It's going to be Dylan Gabriel, but that's fine.
We gotta figure that out.
We'll figure it out. Dylan Gabriel's going to win, though.
But last but not least is the guy that Cottrell just got done talking about, and I talked about him in the recap. Caleb Downs probably comes in the next season as probably the best defensive player in college football. Guy will be a top 10, top 15 pick after next season. He will go into the NFL and he will start immediately. He's a special talent, generational type kid, very good football player. So those were the 4 that I had that I thought made the biggest impact this year.
Curious.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go
ahead. No, you first, Alex.
Go. No, you're champ. You're the champion. You go ahead.
Hey, I appreciate the respect there, but I had a question though, because for me, like I think about these great safeties, like just in recent memory, Caleb Downs, and I'm putting you guys on the spot here, but Caleb Downs. I look at how great Kyle Hamilton was when he was at Notre Dame. I think Caleb Downs might arguably at this point in time be better than what Kyle was at Notre Dame. Now, granted, we knew Kyle was going to go to the league and be special, and we even saw what his growing pains were, that first 10 games that he had. But, I mean, he's been an all-pro safety ever since. Now, I'm not saying Caleb Downs is going to go step in and be, all-pro safety day 1, but at their points in college, do you think Caleb is there? Is he right there? Or, I mean, how do you guys see that?
I'll say this. I think Caleb has a little bit more freedom under Jim Knowles to play than Hamilton did. I think Caleb might be the slightly better athlete as well. We'll have to see what he does, when he decides to leave and when he does the combine and everything else. But I have a feeling he's a little bit of a quicker and a little bit of a better athlete than Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton, for me, though, Caleb, you could still get in certain situations. You saw it last year in the Rose Bowl. Not as much this year. Like I said, I think Jim Knowles really coached a couple bad habits out of him. Kyle Hamilton's football sense and his nose for the ball and not making mistakes and kind of always being in the right place at the right time was something that you really don't get used to seeing in college football. He was so good and so sturdy and reliable at Notre Dame. And obviously, like you said, other than the first half of his rookie year, he's been an animal in Baltimore. But Caleb's right there though, if not more. Like he's in that class. Like he is elite. Like he's a generational type kid.
Yeah, I think Oregon obviously torched Caleb Downs, so obviously Kyle Hamilton's way better. No, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I'm more of the household offensive type of guy. So I'm not really looking at the secondary defensive players like you guys look at defensive players. So I couldn't really tell you, but I know Kyle Hamilton's one of my favorite defensive players in the league. I got a couple autograph cards from him. I've been collecting for the last couple of years on him, so I really like how he plays for Baltimore. Caleb Downs, I really only watched play both times that he played Oregon, and he's a sophomore or junior this year?
True sophomore.
Okay, yeah. Why do you sound so sad? You sound like my son depressed.
He only has him for next year, and he knows it. That's why.
Yeah, it's nice knowing that he'll be back, but yeah. It's different with Jeremiah. Like Jeremiah's like, oh, he's a true freshman. He got him for 2 more years. Caleb is did
you see that after when they were interviewing him, Jeremiah after the game? He's like, yeah, this feels amazing. I can't wait to get 3 more. I can't wait to get 2 more. Like he was like, I'm not staying 4 years. He's like, I meant 2 more, not 3. It was just
this is the problem you run into with Caleb. And again, I'm not saying this is going to happen. This is not me, whatever. But like, God forbid, he gets a little bit banged up, and then like Ohio State like loses 2 games or something. Then he becomes Will Johnson.
Yep,
that's what he becomes. He's like, got my natty last year, not doing it. I'm going in the top 10 next year. I'll be here and I'll help, but I am not going back on that football field. And that's the unfortunate part of
it. One thing I was thinking about, we were kind of going through the transfer portal guys and who's had success and like who was a big impact on their team this year. I can't help but think like what would have happened if certain players hadn't transferred. For example, like Sam Leavitt going from Michigan State last year to Arizona State, getting the starting job, leading Arizona State to a college football playoff. What kind of team is Arizona State if Sam Leavitt doesn't transfer there? Another one being Taylon Green, transferring from Boise State and absolutely showing out Arkansas, getting Arkansas bowl eligible. Obviously, Arkansas did not, wasn't relevant as far as a college football playoff went, but he had over 600 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns. He was sacked 32 times this year, but when he was at Boise, he was only sacked 15 times. I would have loved to see the type of product Boise State would have put on the field with Genty and Taylon Green at the helm. So it's a couple moves that are stuck in my mind that like, what if those moves hadn't happened?
It's funny you say that because there's some moves that I do wonder what happens. Like, what if Oklahoma realizes that Jack Snarnold isn't the heir apparent and Dylan Gabriel stays there? Like, how different is their season? Or Will Howard, if he stays at Kansas State because they think Avery Johnson needs another year, like what does Kansas State season look like? Because they were on the verge of going to the Big 12.
Who starts at Oregon? Does Dante Moore start at Oregon? Who exactly. Is the starter? Is Novosad?
Exactly.
Or how you pronounce his name? Is he the starter?
You're looking at Ohio State, same question marks. Like, is Devin Brown the guy? Is Julian Sane the guy? That's a good point to bring up there, because you do have a lot of question marks there that easily could have gone the other way there.
Yeah, Bill, and you jump out at you?
I don't think Oregon's season changed dramatically Oklahoma. We saw just kind of what they were this year. Oregon's clearly not 15-0. If Dylan doesn't go there,
I don't think Arizona State's in the. I don't think Arizona State makes the playoff. Obviously, Scatterbo goes off, but I don't think that would have Sam Leavitt's play.
Yeah, it's tough.
24
that
and
was
6
tough with Scatterbo still there. That's a little bit of a harder discussion. I I don't know who's playing. I don't think you guys are national champs if Devin Brown's your quarterback. I don't know.
No.
Well, I'm assuming. Well, let's just say Kyle McCord
no.
stays at Ohio State. If Kyle McCord stays at Ohio State, I think they might still win the Natty. I think they might be better. And absolutely, minus Kyle McCord's 5 interception game, he would have been a Heisman Trophy finalist. Minus that one game.
Minus the 5
game.
game.
Minus that 8 turnover game he had.
I'll say
minus
this.
Will Howard sliding to lose the game as a clock runs out. Like, we all have bad games, man. You know, it happens.
But the thing is, that wasn't a bad game. That was a bad decision in the moment. He didn't have a bad game. I think the only bad game that he truly had that was on him was the Michigan game. And I think coaching factored into it. He didn't have a great numbers game against Nebraska, but I also think the play calling sucked the Nebraska game as well. So for me, I think it's simple. I look at it, the offense, nothing much has changed. I mean, you go from you lose Marvin Harrison Jr. and you add Jeremiah Smith and, of course, Quinshawn as well. But the passing game was the issue last year. Kyle McCord he's a great volume thrower, but with what Ohio State wants to do, you talk about like Will, for example, the national championship game, I think, is the perfect example of that. Will Howard started the game out 13 for 13, and it was really just dinking and dunking, taking what the defense gave you. Will Howard was the most accurate quarterback all season in the Big Ten, had the highest completion percentage there. And for the most part, he took what the defense gave him. At times, he got a little bit aggressive. Kyle McCord wasn't that. Kyle McCord was scared to throw the deep ball. So I think we lose out on explosive plays if McCord is here because he didn't want to throw the ball deep to Marvin, didn't want to throw it deep to Emeka last year. So I don't know if Jeremiah Smith still has the same incredible year that he ultimately ended up having. So yeah, I don't think this happens when McCord is the quarterback. Not to mention, the other fact of it is Ryan Day needs a mobile quarterback. Needs somebody that you can have design run plays to. And I know they didn't use Will Howard the same as he was used at Kansas State. Devin Brown would have been better for the offense than Kyle McCord this year.
Funny you mentioned Devin Brown because he went to Cal, and that dude, I can't pronounce his name, and I'm not even going to try it, transferred from Oregon again back to Cal for a chance to start. And then here comes Devin Brown into the mix. It'd be funny if he still ends up a backup.
I told you guys 3 weeks ago Devin Brown was a Cal silent commit. So
you did say that.
He should have already. That recruit should have known it already.
Hey, well, maybe he just feels like he has a better chance of beating Devin Brown out than Dante Moore. Just saying. But go ahead, Bill.
My only thing with Kyle, I think you guys could have won the Natty with Kyle McCord, and I'll say this
for sure.
I think if he stays there.
No. I would have cheered for Ohio State if Kyle McCord was the QB.
With Ryan Day and then still brings in Chip Kelly. I still think – I mean, you saw it this year in Syracuse. I mean, he was a better quarterback this year than he was last year. And if he's being coached by Ryan Day and Chip Kelly all spring, summer, and then, you start fall, and then you start the season, I think you get a better Kyle McCord at Ohio State. I'm not saying it's definite, but I still think you guys could have easily won the national championship with Kyle McCord.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I see it very similar to how it played on the NFL. And I'm not saying these are the two equivalent of people, but I think Kyle McCord reached this, and it was only one season. And I'm not saying he didn't have room to grow, but I think he reached his peak at Ohio State, and he needed to change the scenery to get better. I look at Kyle McCord the same way I look at Jared Goff leaving the Rams. They made it to the Super Bowl. The Rams ultimately won the Super Bowl without him. Could they have beaten the Bengals with Jared Goff? Maybe. But there was a reason why Sean McVay and company decided that they needed to get an upgrade at the position to better fill what they wanted to do. I think that's what Ohio State had to do, and that's why they went out and got Will Howard. So I hear you guys, and I did see the improvements. And, again, I've never said Kyle McCord is a bad quarterback. I've never been on that wave. I just said he wasn't the right guy for us. And I don't even just mean on the field. I'm also talking about mentality, like seeing how he conducted himself, like the Michigan game, calling the Michigan game just another game. That'll never fly as an Ohio State quarterback because that's not the mindset that you can have. And then even seeing, Syracuse wins their little bowl game or whatever, or no, they won the last game of the regular season and Ohio State loses to Michigan. And then they ask him about it in the presser, and he says everything comes full circle. You should still have brothers on that team. I understand that, it didn't probably end the way you wanted to, but you still have brothers on your team. And if you really had love for Ohio State, you wouldn't want Michigan to beat them, or you wouldn't say that. Hell, Quinn Ewers hasn't been here in 3 years, and he still calls them the team up north when he had his Texas interviews when Texas was playing Michigan. So I just don't think he was the guy for the Ohio State job. I never said he was a bad quarterback, but he wasn't the guy to get this job done.
I think the real bet is that Kyle McCord goes in the draft before what's his face, Will Howard. I think that's the real. Because
it's going to be they both going before.
Kyle McCord is going to go. Well, Gabriel and McCord both going to go before Howard.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, that's not the point.
Hang on to at this point.
But hey, we've talked about this season's biggest transfer portal impacts. Who do you guys have your eyes on making these kind of impacts for next year?
I got a ton, so I'll go. I know we're not really going like in order here, but I'll wait to hear your guys' names here, and I think there are some big ones.
I'm going first this time because you guys took on mine last time.
Do it.
So, I'm going to start with both. I'm going to start with both your programs because I think it's going to be very important to, how fast these guys get up to speed and they're really going to determine, kind of how far you guys go next year. That's Dante Moore, obviously, who transferred in last year to Oregon, and then Julian Sain, who transferred in last year to Ohio State. They're both projected to be the number one starters next year.
Oh, I didn't even use those guys because they transferred in last year.
I know, but they didn't play, so it's like new transfers this year.
No, they got a year under their system. They're good. They'll be ready. Both of them.
It'll be again, biggest thing. We talk about how important the quarterback position is in football. And it's even more so in college. It's how fast these guys can hit the ground running is going to really determine, I think the trajectory of both those teams next year. Julian Sain gets no warm up whatsoever. You guys have Texas week 1, I believe.
Yep.
I'm not sure who Oregon opens up with. What?
Probably Sisters of the Poor.
Probably.
Yeah.
Next one. Guy we've talked about at length on this show, but his transfer is still relatively fresh. That's gonna be Carson back in Miami. 2 really good recruiting classes in a row. Got to replace Cam Ward. Didn't want to go back to Georgia. A lot of reports came out with that him and Kirby weren't getting along too well, and they still offered him money to stay, and he wanted to go. So. I think after coming into this year and kind of being a perennial, he was a top, 2 Heisman odds, favorite at the beginning of the season. If he has any hope of playing in the NFL, he has to have a good year next year. So be really curious to see how he looks. And then obviously with us rebuilding, we're not really rebuilding our offense per se, but getting Justice Hayes from Alabama, I think is big for us. Jordan Marshall finally got on the field at the end of the year this year. It showed all the promise that I think all the Michigan fans and coaches and players were hoping for. So for us to be able to go right back to a 2-headed monster next year like we've had the last 3 years is going to be kind of important for us. So I'm really curious to see both of those guys run behind what's probably going to be another top 5 offensive line next year with the other transfers they have coming in. So I'm really, really excited to see Justice Hayes play next year.
Alex, how many quarterbacks you want to talk about? So I got the same.
I got 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 wide receivers. I kept it kind of broad. Oh, okay. I broadened it out a bit.
All right, let's.
I took a little hanging through because I figured. I'm assuming one of you guys going to talk about the one guy that I didn't talk about. So.
Justice Hayes is actually on my list here because I think that is a big time addition for Michigan. I want him to come to Ohio State, but I do think he has the potential to be the best running back in the Big Ten next year. I don't say that. I think that's I know Singleton's coming back, and Katron. I think numbers wise, you might be looking at Justice Hayes as the number 1 back in the Big Ten.
And that's where I'm going to interrupt you, brother, because the best running back transferred from Tulane to Oregon, and Mackie Hughes, baby, 1,401 yards, 17 touchdowns. Dude can catch the ball, over 200 yards receiving. This dude is coming in. He has a skill set that Jordan James did not have. Jordan James is a speed guy. Mackie Hughes is going to punch you in the mouth and run away from you laughing. I'm so excited for this guy to be in the offense.
Who was Jordan James the Division III Heisman guy?
No, I was just about to say,
he only got like 4
isn't the D3 Heisman guy? He's got a whole year under his system. This guy's going to just come in and take the job.
That's all we heard about was this guy last year.
But that's because Mackie Hughes wasn't available, bro. Once Mackie Hughes became available, I was like, who? Who's that guy's name? I don't even know. Get him back to D3 because we got our running back of the future. And I'm excited. Once he committed, dude, I was watching highlights left and right. I was so excited. What are you talking about?
You see how quick they switch up on you? I heard Noah Whittington. I heard this D3 running back.
Yes, Noah Whittington. I said that Noah Whittington was not the answer. I said that Noah Whittington was not going to be the guy next year. I was like,
I was go back to our preseason show.
You can.
I don't think that's what you said.
Yeah, preseason. I've now seen a whole another 13, 14 games of work. I'm not impressed. What I am impressed is
continue. Tell me who else from Oregon
coming through. No, he's my only Oregon player on this list. But I will shout out my guys in Iowa. We brought him up a couple times. But Mark Gronowski transferring from South Dakota State into Iowa. It's nice that Iowa has a quarterback that's not another Big Ten team's hand-me-down. Because this guy knows how to win. 10,000 yards passing, 93 touchdowns, 20 interceptions over his career, and 1,700 yards on the ground. It's nice to see Iowa have a dual-threat quarterback because Cade McNamara was not the answer. And I think Mark's going to come in and be the offensive firepower, be able to give that spark the Iowa offense needs for next season. And then 2 wide receivers I'm looking at for next year. I'm sure one of them is probably on your list. Cottrell, I'll mention him last, so we can segue right into whoever you have left. But Squirrel White, transferring from Tennessee to Florida State. This season, he only had 381 receiving yards. Coming from last year, we had 803. He was not utilized in Tennessee's new style of offense like he was last year with Milton III. But now that he's going to Florida State, Castellanos think is going to air it out. He's got a big arm. Thomas Castellanos does, and I think that Squirrel White's going to be a huge impact player to get Florida State kind of back where they need to be as a program. And then we got another big name that we talked about a couple weeks ago, and that's Zachariah Branch, transferring from USC to Georgia. He had 503 yards, only 4 touchdowns over 2 years at USC. Completely criminally underutilized at that program. So hopefully, if Georgia does anything right this year, it's going to be finding a way to wrap their offense around Zachariah Branch, and that's the way that Georgia can have success next season, is by giving him the ball. But those are my 4 impact players to look out for next year.
I love that you brought that up because you know I got Zachariah Branch in my list.
Of course, I do.
Once the odds come out for way too early Heisman, I'm gonna sprinkle some money on Zachariah Branch. I think he could be that special of a player. I think you could use him at running back, especially for a Georgia team that struggled to figure out, a true identity at that running back position with ETN having the injuries and things like that. But he can also be that receiver that could take the top off, or the gadget guy where you just find ways to put the ball in his hands. He's going to make a play. Them also bringing in Noah Thomas is huge. He's not on my list, but Noah Thomas is a 6'6" receiver from Texas A&M. I think bringing those 2 in is completely trying to change the way that the offense looked this past year. They didn't have anybody that really scared you, and now they got 2 guys, one that can catch anything that's thrown into his radius, and another guy that can kill you with speed. So I love the Zachariah Branch move to Georgia, especially after seeing what their quarterback was able to do in that game against Notre Dame, because although they lost and numbers weren't pretty, they didn't score a ton of points, game wasn't on him. He could sling the rock. So I think Zachariah Branch is going to be due for a big time year there. Quarterbacks I want to talk about are 2 former 5-stars from the 2023 class. You got Jackson Arnold, that going from Oklahoma, and he stunk it up there. And now he's going over to Auburn. And I think this Auburn team has the potential to have a really good year if Jackson Arnold can figure it out. I think there's a reason why he was a 5-star. You just have to find a reason to, get that back out of him. And, I think he could potentially be the answer there for Auburn, or, essentially just be the bridge guy until Deuce McKnight, I believe his name is, the 5-star quarterback they got from this upcoming class, until he's ready to take over there. But the other one is the one that couldn't win the job at Boise, and Malachi Nelson. Malachi Nelson is 5-star kid. He was a kid who I thought was probably the second best quarterback in the entire class, right behind Dante Moore. I had him slightly ahead of Arch Manning coming out of high school. I think the talent is there. And, with the talent being there, you go to UTEP, no expectations whatsoever. None of the eyes are going to be on you. UTEP, I don't think they bring in Malachi Nelson if they don't give him the reins to start. I don't think he goes to a school where he's not able to start right away. So I like the Malachi Nelson move to UTEP. I think that's going to be a put up or shut up destination for him, because if that doesn't work out, it's over. It's all over. There's nothing else you can look at there. So I'm hoping that Malachi can turn the corner and figure it out at a UTEP team that will have no expectations there. I already talked about Justice Haynes and how much of an impact he could have at Michigan, but the other big one for me is one that I slightly touched on last week. That's Patrick Payton going from Florida State to LSU. I think Patrick Payton is an absolute monster on the edge, and LSU is missing that defensive presence. We talked about their offense, before, and, with Nussmeier and what they were able to do offensively, Anderson and Lacey and those guys there. Defensively, they just didn't have it this year. They weren't able to stop anybody. They weren't able to consistently score. I think Patrick Payton is a guy that can come in and be an instant impact, and we can be talking about him as one of the best edges in all of the SEC. So I love that move for them to go get Patrick Payton out the portal and, shore up the defensive line there.
Awesome. On a hilarious note, I was literally just looking for it and I couldn't find it. But I knew last week we were talking about Cade McNamara transferring to
ETSU. Go ahead,
ETSU.
Alex. Come on, give it to me.
What?
ETSU.
Eastern Tennessee State University.
Yeah, there you go.
Somebody else, I was literally trying to find it. Somebody else, another quarterback literally just transferred at the end of the week to go and compete with him now. So he might not even play there. It's going to be hilarious.
That's pretty low, man. You went to ETSU. I'm probably the only one of, besides the people in Eastern Tennessee, I'm probably the only person that knows what those initials stand for. But another quarterback went there because, you know what? They got a guy I can beat out. I saw his tape.
No problem.
Cade's there. Oh, man, I can beat him left-handed. But I think that's it for the transfer portal. I think we just got one more fun, exciting topic to go.
Jacoby Criswell from North Carolina.
Oh, my God. He went there. He left Bill Belichick to go compete against Cade McNamara at Eastern Tennessee State.
Well, Bill probably didn't want him.
Yeah.
I guess
shut his mouth and took his rings and stayed at Michigan. Dumb. But yeah, so last topic of the morning. This one's gonna be a fun one. We said this kind of tongue in cheek, and the more we all started thinking about it, how fun it was gonna be. Obviously, if you're a fan of the EA Sports NCAA, football video game, was it 14 was the last year?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And they finally reintroduced it this past year for 2024. So there was literally a decade gap of no college football video games. So we decided to have fun and go back, and in those 10 years, pick our top 5 guys that we would have loved to play with and thought would have been great in that game with the way it's played and the way it's based. If the game had been made every year. So we're only picking players that were in college for those 10 years from, essentially 2015 to
2013 to 2024, essentially.
Yeah. So a lot of, I will tell you this, like I said, I Googled this to try to just kind of get a reference of, just some big names that played during the time. And there was actually websites dedicated to this that were ranking players that we never got to play with. Big name people. I had so much fun with this. I could have gave you a top 15, top 20 easily. So to cut it down to 5 was not easy. So I do not know which order we're going in.
Bill, I knew you were going to be
I guess I'm going first.
Introing us. So go ahead and start us off here.
All right. Number 5, Trevor Lawrence. Obviously went to Clemson. He was the golden boy, one of the highest recruits, ever to come into college football. Had a very good college career, if we're being honest. And again, if you play these video games, quarterbacks, running backs, they're kind of the two things that if you have a really good one and you know how to play, make it very, very hard to beat. So I start with Trevor Lawrence at number 5. Number 4, Christian McCaffrey. I think he's so good in the pros, people forget what his junior and senior year looked like at Stanford. The kid ran all over the field, was a wide receiver sometimes. He returned kicks and punts too, both, I believe. I know he did at least one. I don't know if he did both of them, but all-purpose yards, like 2,500, like both his junior and senior year. Crazy good athlete, obviously, just like he is now in the pros. I think he would have been a nightmare to play against in this video game, like an absolute nightmare. Next guy, same kind of thing. We know how dominant Derrick Henry's been in the NFL. He was the same size when he played college football. If the funniest thing ever is if you want to go back to the last time Notre Dame was in a national championship game, I believe it was the first drive of the game. They went right down the field, and the play they scored on, Derrick Henry went off tackle. Manti Te'o was sitting there in the hole waiting for him, and Derrick Henry just ran him over. Dude was a house. I love running the ball in this video game, so I would have loved to play Derrick Henry and probably just switched him to Michigan somehow and just run the ball down somebody's throat. These last two are really fun. Joe Burrow, obviously left Ohio State, went to LSU, and then became, the Heisman winner and obviously the quarterback of one of the most prolific college offenses in the history of the game. Jamar Chase was on that team. Who am I missing? Who else was on that team? Oh, Justin Jefferson. Just absurd. I couldn't imagine the numbers you could probably cake up if you really tried to throw the ball all the time with that team. They would just be bonkers. Last but not least for me, Saquon. Again, I don't think people realize or even remember sometimes, short memory, how good he was his last 2 years at Penn State. Another one, return kickoff sometimes.
Yep.
But
that one against us.
Yeah, dude was just electric back then as he is now in the pros. He'd be one of those guys, again, that if you were playing against somebody and they were using Penn State, what's going to happen, and it's probably just not going to matter. He'd probably be damn near untackleable in that game. So I had Saquon number 1 for me. I'm assuming, or I'm at least hoping, that a lot of us have different answers here, and it'll kind of show everybody how many great players were in this time period that we didn't get the opportunity to play in this game. So, I don't know who's going next, but
I believe I am, and yes, I am, and we only have one of the same. You put
Jabril on there. I almost did it, dude. I almost did it.
So yeah, I'll start off number 5 here, and I see Bill didn't show any love for the defensive guys here, and look, I am a master class of defense, and I need my hybrid kind of players. And Jabril Peppers was one of the first to really be that in college. Like, you had your guys that could play corner and play safety and things like that. Well, Jabril was one of those guys, and I got to see it firsthand. He played safety. He'd go play corner. He'd play running back. He'd play receiver. He might take a wildcat snap. He'll go return a punt, a kick return. It didn't matter. Jabril was all over the field. Absolutely hated seeing that guy on Saturdays. But then we drafted him to the Browns, and I was like, all right, Jabril, you can be my guy again. So Jabril would have been one of those very fun guys defensively that would have caused nightmares for everybody. Because like I said, you could have literally played him at corner someplace. You could have played him at safety. You could have put him in the box. He would have just been a matchup nightmare. And I think, with the defensive guys, especially how fast the college football game is played, I think he would have been an absolute force, which leads me right in number 4, Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons would have been an absolute monster in this video game. He would have been a 95 overall edge player. He would have been a 99 overall middle linebacker, probably like 94 overall at safety. You could have threw him also out there at corner. And what makes him special is that he has the speed to go with it. In this game, he probably sitting at like 95 speed. And as an edge rusher, as a middle linebacker, really anywhere on the field, that's a human cheat code. Isaiah Simmons, and you talk about the Clemson offense as well with the Trevor Lawrence and all those guys that would have been there. He was early the tail end of Deshaun Watson. So I mean, I just think that Isaiah Simmons would have been an absolute monster to play with. Number 3, had to get one of my Ohio State guys in there, and for me, it was kind of a toss up between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. But Justin Fields, dual threat quarterback. For me, that's what this game is all about. You have to have a dual threat quarterback in the game, which is ultimately why I didn't have the Joe Burrows or any traditional pocket passers. Because when I'm playing college football, the video game, I need that dual threat. I need a guy who I can call up some speed options, some read options, some triple options, some QB power. Like I need it all, and I feel like Justin Fields would have had everything I needed in that game, and then some. Number 2 for me, got Christian McCaffrey, a guy that Bill already mentioned. And a big reason why is because I think Christian McCaffrey might have been one of the best running backs we've ever seen in this game. And I'm not saying that lightly. Like I played with Reggie Bush, younger. I played with Darren McFadden in his heyday. I played with Adrian Peterson, in his heyday. Christian McCaffrey was different in college. Like what he was able to do from the line of scrimmage, like you probably wouldn't even have to really use your right stick to juke just because he was that quick and that elusive in college. Like Christian McCaffrey would have been an absolute cheat code in that game. But number 1 for me is probably the one who would have really been that cheat code, and that's Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, that would have reminded me of, playing with, I'm sure you guys played it, but Madden 04, Michael Vick, it would have been the exact same thing. You'd have been able to run around the field as much as you wanted to, and no one would have been able to catch him. And as soon as he hit the open field, you would have known that he was gone. Spin move would have been crazy. Jukes would have been crazy. And honestly, because of how good of an athlete he was, and I'm not saying Lamar can't throw, but they probably would have overrated his throwing a bit just because his overall would have been so high. So for me, I think Lamar and CMC, they're a very close 1-2, but I think those are the 2 most explosive athletes that we ultimately missed out on in the NCAA game.
All right, Alex.
Yes. Obviously, across everybody's board, Christian McCaffrey. Being an Oregon Duck fan in the Pac-10, the Pac-12, I saw Christian McCaffrey firsthand, and it was not a fun day if you saw Stanford on the schedule while he was there because there's been a couple really heartbreaking defeats in the Oregon Duck tenure, and anytime Christian McCaffrey was on the field was definitely one of them. And then obviously the 2001 when Stanford, the one loss that we had in 2001 was to Stanford, costing us a national championship that year. I remember that game because I was there at that game, my first Ducks game when they lost. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Christian McCaffrey, absolute stud at Stanford. I would love to have played with him. However, that would have required me to play with Stanford, and I think that would have been my biggest issue in order to use him. And then obviously, I think it was on Bill's list as well, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is an easy choice because of all the offensive weapons you get when you get Joe Burrow. You get Jamar Chase, you get Justin Jefferson, you get the whole offensive unit. And that's just way too much fun. Just like Bill said, you could easily probably have 6,000 passing yards if you really wanted to, no problem. And Control kind of alluded to it, but Lamar Jackson, he would have been an absolute cheat code to play with. Running the ball, passing the ball. Dude had an absolute cannon in college, obviously. In the pros, he's perfected his accuracy, but he had a huge arm. Could throw on the run, roll out, not screen passes, option plays. He would have been a lot of fun to play with. Same exact philosophy with Jaden Daniels. You can kind of see my style of play judging by my top 3. Just like Cottrell said, I love myself some mobile quarterbacks with big arms, guys that can throw it deep down the field, if I can throw on the run, but also on that 4th and 3 play, can roll out and get those yards if you need him to. So Jaden Daniels for me is kind of the same kind of player that Lamar Jackson had. I just like that Jaden Daniels LSU offense a little bit more. So I would have enjoyed playing with Jaden Daniels a little more due to his wide receiver weapons that he had. And then first and foremost, my boy Marcus Mariota, especially in 2014 when he won the Heisman. The Oregon Ducks were not littered with talent on that roster. They still had a fantastic season. I think it was really only him and his running back Royce Freeman, who spent some time in the NFL, obviously. On that team that made that. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. We don't live in the past, Cottrell. We live in the future.
You live in the present.
And the future is that Marcus Mariota is the backup quarterback this weekend against the Eagles. So, hey, Marcus Mariota, let's go. but Marcus Mariota is probably going to be the player that I wish I could play with the most, just because I play with Oregon nonstop. Having those years of having Marcus Mariota under center and his ability to run the option, especially with Royce Freeman, Michael James, a couple of years, or sorry, not Michael James, D'Anthony Thomas a year or so earlier. I think it would have been a lot of fun to play with him, and that's my top 5 list.
Alex, you know what's crazy? I sent you this list to make sure everything was beautiful.
Oh,
and you let me put up Marcus Maryland. Like you just let the auto correct slide.
See, here's what happened.
Shame on you.
I saw it come in, and I was I saw the Marcus, and I saw the M, and I was like, "Cool, it's good."
I didn't even notice it until literally right now, which is why I laughed. Like as soon as I put it up, I was like, "Oh, how did that happen?"
I didn't have to look. I knew as soon as I started looking at these lists, and he was on every single one of them. But as soon as I saw his name, I was like, "That's Alex's number one."
Remember, I brought him up last week. That started this whole conversation. Was Marcus Mariota in the NCAA. So, yeah, dang right he's going to be my number one. Cottrell thought I was going to pick Bo Nix, but Marcus Mariota was, like I said, Oregon Duck through and through, recruited, never transferred. Like he was a purebred Oregon Duck through and through, and so he would be my number one.
Honestly, sure. I honestly forgot that he wasn't in the game. Like I just kind of assumed that he was because of how long ago it feels like that he was in, college, but right. It makes sense that he wasn't. But yeah, Alex, though, I'm serious. How did their season end? I forgot.
Well, anyway, folks, thanks for joining another great week of Coast to Coast. We'll see you next week for our final episode and award show. Take it away, Bill.
So again, fun segment.
Bill, do you remember how their season ended?
Hold on a second. Is there a way to mute you? Hold on. I can. Oh wait, I did it. I muted him. Let's go. I'll unmute you for now, though.
So obviously, fun show tonight. Again, congrats to Ohio State and Cottrell and all the Buckeye fans. Next week will be it. Before I do think we will definitely make a concerted effort to come back. Kind of like around draft time and stuff like that, and probably have a couple episodes, maybe not fully 2 hours, but come back, talk about the combine, stuff like that. But after next week, we'll be off for a little bit. But we're gonna go out and have fun. Next week, we're gonna have our way too early college football playoff predictions for next year. We are going to do what else are we doing?
Awards for the year.
Awards. We'll do awards for the year. What did we just add?
That's why I wrote it down.
Yeah, programs that as a coach for the future we want to take
top 10 programs. Yeah, top 10, pretty much top 10 jobs in college football. And I thought there's a fourth one.
Yeah, I don't remember, but we'll talk about it.
Oh yeah, opening week for next year.
Yeah, that's it. Because the opening slate's actually pretty interesting next year. So we'll discuss all that next week. And like I said, that'll be the first show before our. I guess you can call it winter break, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Our hiatus.
End of the season.
Hiatus.
Season 3 coming soon.
Season 3 coming soon, going strong. Obviously, one more to go, but we'll go over a lot of this next week. But everybody who's tuned in this year, watched, shared, liked, commented. Justin Louder again holding down, I think, the number one fan category for the second year in a row. But this show has grown so much from last year to this year, and we kind of put it together really quick last year, and just kind of did everything on the fly as best we could. And obviously, the three of us have invested a lot more time into it this year, and I think the show has been tremendously better. It's still a blast to do with both you guys, but we have some stuff that we want to do next year already. So we are literally planning for August for next year already, and we're gonna keep trying to get better and keep having fun, and get to do the show because in my opinion, there's nothing better than college football. So, any closing thoughts from either one of you guys?
You got two quick things. One's
Joe.
echo the Justin Louder love. Bowl Mania finished in second, finished better than Alex and Bill, and finished 2 games by me, and he was right. He's with Gene as well, tie for them as well, and it really came down to like the last few games there. So obviously, he's been locked in, so I'm sure a lot of the talk on this show has helped with that from all of us there, but definitely wanted to give him a shout out for the great job there in the Bowl Mania. And then the other thing is that I'm kind of hoping that at some point we expand here, because the expansion year just happens to be good luck for us. We can only win it when they expand. First they expand to 4, and then they expand to 12, and we win it this year. So I hope it doesn't
change it again.
I hope we don't have to wait until the next time they want to go up a number. But if they do, I mean, Ohio State is not. Yeah, I'm not going to say what I wanted to say, but Ohio State has not been afraid to take care of business in that inaugural game.
Whatever. Can I go away now?
I will point out the only reason any of you won college football bowl mania is because I forgot to pick games for the first 2 days. But
whose fault is that?
Bill,
just mine.
You missed the first 7, and you still only had 2 less losses than me. So I mean, you would have been right there with me, maybe.
I closed it within 4 though.
You did. Small margin though.
But my fault is what it is. Alex, any closing thoughts? I know this has been a struggle for you tonight. Well, this morning.
Well, this morning, it's a struggle bus, but we made it through. Only one more week. I have to suffer through this asshole. I mean, this guy over here. But no, it's been another wonderful year with you guys. Wait, is it that way?
There you go.
It's that way. No, it's the other way.
Well, for me, it's that way. Anyway, I appreciate doing this show with you guys as always. I can't even tell you to go screw yourself, right? At type of year with us Duck fans are having. No, another great
Duck
season.
You know how incompetent they get this time of year. It's January.
Have a good day, y'all.
It's January. It's way past the time frame that they're used to.
All right.
All right, boys. Another great morning with you. I appreciate the hell out of both of you. I hope you know that. And but we got one more to go, one more fun show to go, and then I still get to see Coachella every week. But Alex, we'll have to figure something out. I know Gene's gonna miss the show somewhere soon, so maybe you'll just hop on and do wire to wire with us.
I'll do it. I got enough going on Wednesday nights right now.
Yeah.
All right, gents.
It's not like you're celebrating a Ducks championship or anything.
Lay it on thick, Bill. Lay it on.
Gentlemen, have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, see you guys.